All right, I think we're live. Namaste and welcome to the 101st edition of the Bharatvaarta Weekly. I'm Roshan Karyappa, and together I have Abhishek Paul. We'll run you through the news and events of the week that was. Abhishek, it's a very Bangalorean weekly today. Huh? I mean, we've had some lovely weather over the last 4 to 6 weeks, even by Bangalore standards. So, how are things with you?
Things are good, Roshan. How are things with you?
Couldn't be better, couldn't be better. Can't complain at any rate. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to cover this week as well. I mean, although it was a little quieter, but yeah, I mean, we had the presidential election. Srimati Droupadi Murmu was elected as the 15th president of India. Then, the Gandhi family's woes continue with the questioning by the ED. Adani's riches grow. Right, Gautam Adani became the fourth richest man in the world. And in some troubling news, monkeypox was declared as a global emergency by the WHO. And also, we had Rajya Sabha's first week in the monsoon session. So, all of this and more. But before we begin, as usual, let's talk about the episode we put out last week. It was a freewheeling conversation with Abhishek Murarka, who's head of growth and community at Multiply. And this was about investing in the equity markets. I thought it was a very wide-ranging conversation. We spoke about many different facets, and considering that we've had record number of investors come into the market over the last couple of years, especially, I thought this was a great primer. And Abhishek is one of those folks who posts really, really insightful stuff on Twitter. If you haven't followed him already, I mean, I think you should. Talks about all of the macro stuff, talks about the business, and so on. Abhishek, what do you think about this episode?
Yeah, this was a very good episode. I really enjoyed listening to both of you speak on this. So the good part about Abhishek explaining, was he explained it like in a way that anyone who is a newcomer to the investing scene can really get it in a very simple and basic manner, right? He did not use too many jargons or hi-fi funda to sort of explain investing or even trading. He basically explained it in a very simple and lucid manner. So, for example, one of the quite amusing but very useful things he said is that when you are starting off and you are thinking of investing in a company, try and explain your investment case to your mother, right?
Yeah.
And if you're able to do that, it means that you have sort of understood the fundamentals of that company and various things related to that. So yeah, it was pretty interesting listening to him. Firstly on the basics, but also I think he gave a very nice sort of roundup of the macro factors impacting India today as well, right? And I think he came across as a fairly optimistic and positive guy as far as the India story is concerned as well. So it was good to listen to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was often reminded of that Rakesh Jhunjhunwala quote, right? I mean, anytime he's asked to pick a sector, he says India is like a buffet, right? So, well, moving on to the first piece of news, Srimati Droupadi Murmu has been elected as India's 15th president. She came to power as the first tribal president yesterday and scooped up over 60% of the total vote value. Her opponent, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, ended up with 35% of the vote. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with senior members of his cabinet and BJP chief JP Nadda, visited Ms. Murmu to congratulate her. Celebrations broke out across the country, complete with sweets and colorful tribal dances. Odisha's Rairangpur, the hometown of Ms. Murmu, broke out in celebrations as the trend became clear. At 64, Ms. Murmu will be the youngest and India's first president to be born after independence. Well, this is a phenomenal milestone in independent India, I would say, right? 15th president of India, and she's the youngest at 64 years of age, born after independence as well, the first president to be born after independence. She hails from the Santhal tribe and from Rairangpur in Odisha. And as I mentioned, the first tribal and the second woman after Ms. Pratibha Patel to become the president. And she's had a tough life, right? I mean, Her husband passed away some years ago, and also her two sons as well passed away. She's got a daughter right now, and she rose up the ranks. She was, she used to work in the irrigation department apparently. Joined the BJP in 1997, and since then has held various posts, including Ministry of Fisheries, Ministry of State for Commerce, and so on. Since 2015, she's been the governor of Jharkhand, right, which is the highest post that she's held. But this is fantastic stuff. I mean, it was interesting to see some of the reportage, though, especially from the foreign media, right? While this should have been hailed unanimously, there were sort of facile attempts to say that, hey, this is just positioning or signaling and so on, and that somehow this government is, anti-indigenous people in some sense, right? Which is again absurd if you consider, the kind of makeup and the constituents of a lot of key posts seem to come from backward communities, right? And in fact, Prasanna famously predicted this, in the run-up to the president elections as well, right? That, hey, I mean, we might see something like this. So yeah, fantastic. And with this, we have the president of India who's an Odia. We have the RBI governor who's an Odia, the education minister, railway minister, CAG of India, NCB chief, IMD chief, all of them are ODIs, right? So yeah, I mean, that's something. So yay to the state Odia folks from Odisha, really. Abhishek, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, as you said, quite a historic achievement. And the coverage of this has been amusing, even within India, actually. So
Yeah.
I saw how the great newspaper from Kolkata, the Telegraph, carried the results. So they
basically a meme journal at this point of time.
Yes. So the latest meme was that they found out that she got, it seems, the third lowest percentage of votes among all presidents, and so that is how they were able to crack a joke, it seems. So, but yeah, I think about Droupadi Murmu and this. Victory by the BJP's candidate in the presidential election. A few interesting sort of events happened in terms of cross voting by a number of opposition parties in her favor as well, right? So there were parties from various states who actually, despite opposing the BJP in their usual course of politics, went and voted for her, right? So there were people in Jharkhand, there were people in Uttar Pradesh, right? Couple of allies of the Samajwadi Party, they cross-voted. Then, of course, I think she got most of the votes from Odisha. And so her, nomination and her becoming president as a representative of tribals is actually a good move in terms of building its overall social coalition from the point of view of the BJP, right? In terms of various elections that are coming up as well. So yeah, I think a pretty smart move by the party in terms of its nominations for both the president and the vice president. And I think the vice president elections happen next month, probably, right? And so I expect Jaideep Dhankar also to probably win that one comfortably, although he will probably get lesser number of cross voting and things like that, right? And of course, the electoral college for that is different. It's, I think, only the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha which vote for the vice president. We'll of course also miss Mr. Venkaiah Naidu and his
of course
acronyms. So that's there.
Yeah. All the best to the 15th president of India. We hope that she does the best. Moving on, Congress President Sonia Gandhi was questioned by the Enforcement Directorate in the National Herald case amid protests by party workers in the capital and other parts of the country. The ED questioned Ms. Gandhi for 2 hours in association with a money laundering case. Sonia was questioned on 28 points related to takeover of Associated Journals, or AJL, the publishers of National Herald and other Congress organs. The enforcement agency has been seeking details from Sonia and earlier from Rahul and other Congress functionaries about the transactions and verifiable documents in support of their claim that Congress paid 90.21 crores to AJL or its employees. Abhishek, National Herald seems to be like an albatross for the Gandhis, right? What do you see happening further?
Yeah, I don't know in terms of, the facts of the case haven't really changed in a decade, right? Since Subramaniam Swamy brought this to the courts. So I'm not sure exactly what the ED is expecting Sonia Gandhi to say or not say. But the more interesting thing for me was the reaction of the workers of the Congress party in various parts of the country, right? They were sort of protesting very vehemently, and there were some minor sort of incidents here and there where some cars got burned or things like that, right? And interestingly enough, even the Lutyens media was kind of covering it in a way that when has the Congress party put in so much effort or passion in protesting or doing any sort of political activity in on any issue in this country, right? It's only when it comes to the Gandhi family that their workers seem to get sort of fired up and pumped up, right, to come out on the street. So that was an interesting sort of fallout from this questioning incident. As far as the case go, what I understood is, and I was listening to one or two reports on TV, right, that Sonia Gandhi said that she's not well and she'll need constant medical attention even through the 2-hour questioning, right? And so that is why Priyanka Gandhi was sort of accompanying her into the ED, and there were other doctors at standby and so on. So that was sort of the main thing coming out of that questioning episode, right? That Sonia Gandhi, the way the Congress spokesperson and Congress supporters make it out is, how dare a government agency even think of questioning Sonia Gandhi, right? Who's supposedly like above the law for them, right? So
she recently recovered from COVID as well, right?
Yeah. So I think she sort of gave a medical reason and skipped the questioning for 2-3 times prior to this one, and then finally obliged the agencies this time. So yeah, I'm not sure where the case is going, but let's see.
All right, moving on. Gautam Adani overtook Bill Gates to become the 4th richest person in the world. Mr. Gautam Adani's wealth on Thursday stood at $115.7 billion as compared to Bill Gates's $104.6 billion. Wow, it seems like all numbers at this point of time. In the last 24 hours, Mr. Adani gained $337 million. Really puts into perspective what you did in the last 24 hours, right? Anyway, Elon Musk tops the list with Bernard Arnault, founder and chairman of Louis Vuitton, coming in second on the list with a wealth of $156.7 billion. He's followed by former Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos with a wealth of $148.4 billion. Mr. Mukesh Ambani, chairman and managing director of Reliance Industries, is the 10th on the list with a total wealth of $90 billion. Adani and Ambani are the only Indians in the Forbes top 10 list. Well, I know people have reservations about Mr. Adani, and whichever way you think about it, I think it's an inspiring story, right? Completely self-made man, moved from Gujarat to Mumbai, sometime in the 70s, I think, right? Started out as a diamond broker, and then apparently his brother started a factory, and they had to import plastics from outside. And so he started learning up that business. And that's like a defining characteristic of Mr. Adani, right? Anything that he has had to learn or solve, he has made a business out of that. Post-liberalization, I think he also had his first win with the whole Mundra port, right, which they won. And as I mentioned, that vertical integration has been like a hallmark of his career, right? I mean, if you look at power, for example, where for thermal plants you need coal, and so he started owning coal mines, and then started owning a logistic company as well, and he owns coal mines in Australia as well, right? Yeah, I mean, plenty of these companies, whether it's Adani Port, Adani Power, all of these have done incredibly well over the last couple of years. I mean, in fact, breakout stock, in fact, right, when you look at it. And there are some new businesses also that he's considering, like aviation, data center, media, and so on. Um, the concern is on the group's debt, right, which is up 40% for FY22. It's at 2.21 lakh crores, which is insane, right? I mean, that's a crazy amount of debt. And considering that, I mean, the shares have been pledged to the bank as well as collateral. I mean, it's crazy, right? The debt to equity ratio was at a 4-year high of 2.36 at the end of March of this year, apparently, and that's been growing steadily as well. All of this is definitely reason for caution, right? I mean, if Mr. Adani is able to pull off all of these various businesses and generate revenue and profits, well, I mean, everyone wins. But yeah, I mean, if there's a case of defaults, then this is certainly concerning, right? When you look at what happened with the whole NPA crisis and so on. There are also allegations that he got land for cheap and he got all of these tenders because of political affiliations and so on. But yeah, I mean, he has been in the game for almost 3 decades, right? Even before, let's say, the BJP government came into power at the center, and he's been going steadily, right? I mean, it's Adani is today India's biggest coal importer, India's biggest port operator, and so on. The funny thing is, I was reading a Fortune article about this, and somehow it made the case that everyone others like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and everyone, their wealth is declining because of philanthropy, and then sort of to indicate that Mr. Adani hasn't done too much to that end, right? But I remember just on his 60th birthday, I think they pledged the group pledged around, I mean, he pledged around $7.5 billion for social causes, right? I mean, that's a significant amount again. So yeah, I mean, again, inspiring to many, right? There are some causes of concern, but let's see how it plays out. Abhishek, any comments?
No, I think another interesting tidbit is his group is probably the third group in India to cross 200 billion in market cap, right?
Yeah.
So after the Tata Group and the Reliance Group. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think his uh, group is like the diversification as well as the vertical integration in his group is quite like stunning, right?
Yeah.
So many different and hard businesses, right? It's not like he's latched on to let's say an IT services business and made a lot of money or anything like that, right? All his businesses are really hardcore uh, energy sector or
Infrastructure.
logistic or infrastructure, and slowly he's like covering up everything, right? So as you said, telecom, media, airlines, these are probably in the works
Yeah.
in the next few years.
Yeah. And he's seeing a lot of investments as well, right? I mean, I think Warburg Pincus also invested quite recently
Yeah.
in the group, I think. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Monkeypox has been declared a global health emergency by the WHO. The label of global health emergency is WHO's highest level of alert. It is designed to sound an alarm that a coordinated international response is needed to avoid the crisis. The disease has also reached India's shore, with Kerala reporting India's third case of monkeypox last week. So far this year, there have been more than 16,000 cases of monkeypox in more than 75 countries and 5 deaths in Africa. The viral disease spreads via close contact and tends to cause flu-like symptoms and pus-filled skin lesions. Well, I mean, the wars don't seem to end at all. Abhishek, what's happening on this?
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those times on earth where mankind is suffering from all sorts of ailments, and this monkeypox He's just one more. Like, I think we are all kind of now used to living in a pandemic world, so should not be too much of a bother.
Yeah, but I think the WHO is acting pretty quickly in in contrast with COVID
Yeah,
here.
maybe because there is no China angle here, so they were quick to raise the alarm.
Well, let's hope that we're able to get past this as well. I mean, last thing we need after 2 years or 2.5 years of a pandemic is another kind of a health emergency. But one thing I do notice is that one Taleb always says, right? Taleb is always irritated when people call COVID a black swan event, because he says that these kind of things with interconnectedness is something that you should expect anyway, right? With as many flights and as many um, connections across the world, right? So somehow, I mean, I think his predictions are coming more true suddenly, right, at this point of time. All right, moving on. The Rajya Sabha reported a productivity of 27% in the first week of monsoon session. The House transacted business only for 1 hour 16 minutes during the first 3 days of the week, while it improved to 5 hours 31 minutes during the last 2 days. Some sections of the House insisted on taking up discussion on price rise and GST hike under Rule 267, suspending rules for taking up this issue. This led to disruptions and forced adjournments of the House. During the first week of the current session, 22 of the 75 listed starred questions were orally replied to in the House. As many as 5 special mentions were made by the members. What do you think are some of the hot topics to be discussed during this session?
I think right now the entire focus is on the two elections, right? So we just had the presidential election, and then we have the vice president's election coming up. And after that, I think the other big, I mean, as you said, the two big issues which the opposition have right now is the sort of high inflation rate and changes in GST slab rates, right? So, for example, a lot of coverage has gone into the 5% GST on processed food, right? And so, it's a sort of easy thing for the opposition to beat up the government, right? In terms of, oh, they are putting GST on food, right? And so, yeah, I think these will be some of the sort of key issues uh, for this session as far as the opposition goes. Also, I think I mean the story of Congress will keep sort of disrupting proceedings with the other story we talked about, right, which is the ED's questioning of Sonia Gandhi and others, right? So that's something that will sort of keep getting brought out. I think the other day in Lok Sabha, our finance minister talked about cryptocurrency as well, right? So that could be another topic. And also, I expect, I guess, some more discussion on the Agnipath scheme, right? So these would be the main topics, I think, for this session.
All right. Ending on some sporting news. Neeraj Chopra won a historic silver medal. This was India's second medal at the World Championships and the first podium finish since Anju Bobby George won a bronze medal in the long jump at Paris in 2003. Tokyo Olympics javelin throw champion Neeraj Chopra on Sunday ended India's 19-year-long wait for a medal at the World Athletics Championship after he clinched the silver medal at the 2022 meet with a historic throw of 88.13 meters. Someone on Twitter joked that the last time this happened, Yashwant Sinha was the External Affairs Minister, right? And today, this is fantastic stuff, right? I mean, I think we're going to see more of this as well, over the coming years, and definitely winning an athletics medal is definitely heartening, right? I mean, God knows, I mean, we win plenty on the cricket and whatever other, like badminton as well now, right? But yeah, hearing something on the athletics front is Definitely heartwarming. All right, so that's it from us here at the Weekly. We have a couple of very interesting episodes coming up. We recorded an episode on the Pasmanda Muslim movement. They're a minority Muslim community. And we had Fayaz Ahmed Faizi, who's an author and social activist from that community, speak about some of the issues as they see it from their lens and their perspective. This was hosted by Sharan Shetty of Swarajya, and a fairly wide-ranging conversation. Do check that out. I had a conversation with our old friend Harsh Madhusudan, who is, an author, economist, investor extraordinaire, someone who's very well known for his views on economy, politics, on Twitter. And this was a 90-plus minute conversation that I had with him. We basically discussed the state of the economy, right? So how does this inflation thing work? How will it pan out over the coming months? What about these forex reserves, that we see declining? And with exports rising, all of these things, right? I mean, really, what do some of these macro trends and indicators mean for us common people, right? I mean, and how does it impact us in our daily lives? One thing that I really like about Harsh is, he's got real skin in the game, and plus he's able to articulate all of his views very eloquently, perhaps better than anyone I know. So it was a very rich and insightful conversation. Both of these are coming up next week. Some of you may not be able to see our podcast on Apple. We have an issue. I mean, we're working with the platform on this. Hopefully we get that resolved. But yeah, you can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us on the other platforms, wherever you can listen to Bharatvaarta. So that's it from Abhishek and me for this week. It's a short round. It's a short weekly. Next week we'll be back with more to discuss. Thank you again for joining us. Reach out to us on social media. We're at Bharatvaarta on Facebook, Twitter, and elsewhere. If you have comments, questions, suggestions for guests, suggestions for what content we should cover, and so on, let us know, and we'll be happy to take them up. So thank you again for joining us. Stay safe, take care, and have a great week ahead.